The report highlighted inadequate information sharing and trust issues between ASIO and the AFP, along with a range of operational flaws. But it did not address the most disturbing issues raised by the case. Did you examine the gross breach of powers that Justice Adams referred to?
No.
No. What about the false imprisonment and kidnapping?
No.
No. Did you examine the oppressive conduct of the AFP?
No.
Or the fact that, that one of its officers gave untruthful evidence?
Well, you're putting adjectives on them. When I say no, I'm not embracing those adjectives.
No, oh, well, those were Justice Adams' words that I'm quoting.
Well, I still don't embrace those adjectives.
So none of those issues was within your terms of reference?
No.
Why do you think the AFP didn't ask you to investigate those matters?
Probably because the Commissioner of Guilty knew my philosophy and that I would not be prepared to undertake an inquiry to attribute blame and who's right and who's wrong.
Do you think that's why he chose you?
Oh, I've no idea. I have no idea. No, well, I had some judicial experience and that was important.
Of all the terrorism cases, the spotlight has focused most intensely on Dr. Mohammed Hanif.
While the state has the right to employ to the full its arsenal of legal weapons to repress and prevent terrorist activities, it may not use indiscriminate measures which would only undermine the fundamental values they seek to protect.
The Hanif case is currently the subject of an inquiry by former New South Wales Judge John Clark QC.
For democracy and the rule of law.
A disturbing picture is emerging of how the case went so badly wrong. Hanif's saga began on the 30th of June last year, when a jeep driven by his second cousin, Kafil Ahmed, exploded in flames at Glasgow Airport. 2 days later, Dr. Hanif was arrested at Brisbane Airport, where he was waiting to board a plane to India. Four Corners has obtained the audio recordings of Hanif's interviews with the Federal and Queensland Police, starting at Brisbane Airport.
Do you agree that I told you under arrest for assisting a terrorist organisation or supporting a terrorist organisation?
I really don't. I haven't supported any.
Okay, I'm just asking you. Do you agree that that's what I said to you when I placed you under arrest?
I don't really understand what you mean by. I haven't supported any of the terrorist organisations or anything.
We're going to want to ask you a lot of questions. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Probably not quite now. What we initially want to do is conduct a search of you and also your luggage here.
Sure.
Okay.
The Law Council of Australia says Hanif should never have been detained in the first place.
There is no common law power to arrest someone and detain them while you carry out an investigation. You must have that reasonable belief that an offence has been committed.
So on the information publicly available, was his arrest unlawful?
Yes, it was certainly not justified.
Within hours of Hanif's arrest, the politicians had seized on it.
I just wanted to make a couple of brief comments about the taking into custody of a man at Brisbane Airport last night. The Attorney-General and the Federal Police Commissioner have already briefed the media and the Australian public on this issue.
The running commentary continued as Hanif's detention was extended day after day under the unique provisions of the terrorism laws.
There are people within our midst who would do us harm and evil if they had the opportunity of doing so.
It is quite a complex investigation and the links to the UK are becoming more concrete.
The media and political frenzy only heightened the pressure on the police who were actually working on the case.
It was an incredibly gruelling and intense period. One of them had 40 hours without sleep, one of our members. Such is the chain of the unbroken interviews and while Mr Hanif's resting, they're still gathering material to prepare.
Thinking of going to India.
As the investigation entered its second week in July last year, it became steadily clearer the evidence wasn't stacking up. On about July 10th, a senior AFP officer wrote to his superiors that having reviewed the material in possession of the investigation team, he did not believe there was sufficient evidence to charge Hanif. On July 12th, Commissioner Kelty had a private phone conversation with the Commonwealth DPP, who was waiting for a plane at Melbourne Airport. Kelty said he didn't think there was a case against Hanif. The same day, the Immigration Department noted preliminary advice from the AFP is that there is insufficient evidence to support a criminal charge. ASIO had already advised that it did not have information to indicate Dr Hanif had any involvement in or foreknowledge of the UK terror acts.
If ASIO, the most suspicious of organisations, had come to the view by July the 11th that there was nothing to be suspicious about with Dr Hanif, then there was absolutely no basis for anyone to be suspicious about it.
On Friday the 13th of July, a prosecutor from the DPP's office was summoned to AFP headquarters in Brisbane to advise on charging Hanif. He was given a 48-page briefing paper, plus police statements, charts and other records. But crucial evidence of Hanif's innocence was missing. An emailed letter in which the Glasgow bomber Kafil Ahmed apologised to his brother Sabeel for not having told him of his plans.
If the document that completely exonerates Sabeel Ahmed wasn't provided to the DPP, then the DPP wasn't provided with the most relevant document, because Dr Hanif is charged with providing a SIM card 12 months before anything happened, with about $40 credit on it, to Sabeel Ahmed. Sabeel Ahmed is completely innocent of anything to do with the terrorist attacks. So Dr Hanif's giving the SIM card to Sabeel Ahmed must be a completely innocent act. So that document was the most crucial bit of evidence that proved Dr Hanif was innocent.
Inside the AFP office, the tension was rising. Unless Hanif was charged, he would be released the following day. The prosecutor said it was a hothouse atmosphere in which he felt unspoken but extreme pressure from the police. Mid-afternoon, the prosecutor rang his boss, who advised him not to approve a charge against Hanif. According to the DPP's submission, the prosecutor misunderstood the instruction. He later drafted the wording for a charge of providing resources to a terrorist organisation. He gave this to the police, but stressed that there were weaknesses in the case and deficiencies in evidence.
What were your thoughts when you were told that your daughter was sick in hospital?
I mean, I was worried about my daughter, and I was thinking of going to India to visit them.
Late that day, the police sat Hanif down to interview him again. The questioning lasted 12 hours, from 4 in the afternoon till after 4 the next morning.
So let me just clarify, your daughter's in hospital, your wife's not in hospital?
Wife's there at the hospital as well, with her mother.
But who's been admitted to hospital?
My child.
Your child only, yeah.
They left me with the impression that they'd run out of questions, that they were really going over old ground, where I felt that they had taken it as far as they could, and there was nothing new in the material.
This is speculation, this is hearsay.
Afterwards, the federal and Queensland police on the case held a final crucial meeting. According to the Queensland police submission, they discussed that Hanif's explanations were plausible. The Queensland officers stated that they believed there was insufficient evidence to charge. At this point, the leader of the AFP team, Ramsey Jabbour, made a phone call to AFP senior management in Canberra. He passed on the Queensland police view that there was insufficient evidence. He then put the phone down and announced that he was going to charge Hanif.
the inference that one is likely to draw is that Mr Jabour was given very strong advice by somebody in Canberra superior to him, so we don't know whether it goes to the very top of the AFP or whether it's a deputy commissioner or whatever, that it was appropriate for him to lay a charge, despite everybody else having the view that there was insufficient evidence.
Four Corners has obtained a separate inside account of the investigation, which says this. The investigators doing the interview refused to charge Hanif for lack of evidence, and as a result he was charged by the senior officer of the entire investigation. It says this is a very strange occurrence and notes the level of micromanagement of the case was immoderate to say the least. It concludes the decision to charge was not supported by the many police dealing with the evidence.
The actual arresting officers have come to feel to an extent as if they're the face of all that's wrong about Australia's draconian terrorist laws, and that they've gleefully and recklessly gone out and used powers that they shouldn't have. That's not the case at all. That's not the way it unfolded at all, and that's why we're looking forward to Justice Clark's report.
When the case against Hanif collapsed 2 weeks later, the Director of Public Prosecutions was forthright about his office's failings.
On my view of this matter, a mistake has been made. I'll now take further steps to inquire as to how that mistake occurred.
There has been no such admission from Commissioner Kelty.
The police investigation has been thorough. I make no apology for that, nor should I in a terrorism investigation in this country. We have done our job well in this instance. We have done our job professionally.
For Jerry and Jenny Fletcher, the Hanif saga seemed like a case of déjà vu.
My personal opinion is that somewhere along the way, someone failed to say stop. It's where the position comes that everything that's put in front of you says, we have nothing. This man is innocent. Someone failed to call a halt and went down a road that was immoral, and it was wrong.
It took the AFP another year and more than $8 million to decide that Hanif was no longer a suspect. Commissioner Kelty's response to the furor, which was to call for a media blackout on terrorism cases, was the last straw for some critics.
I think Kelty's performance in the Hanif case was disgraceful, and I think he was a significant component in it all going wrong.
Do you think his position is tenable?
No, I don't think his position is tenable. I think he's had his run.
The Rudd government has stated publicly that Commissioner Kelty still has its support. But privately, the government began casting about for a successor earlier this year, approaching at least 2 possible candidates for Kelty's job. Ultimately, though, the issue is not the personality at the helm of the Australian Federal Police. It's the performance of the organisation he leads.
This is an organisation whose budget's grown from under $400 million 6 years ago to more than $1.7 billion in this current financial year. That needs some kind of scrutiny as to whether it's doing what it's doing well. Could it do it better? Is it well targeted? I don't think you can leave those judgments alone to the organisations involved.
From my personal experience, I'm very sorry to see the AFP be called into question the way it is, because there's so many good people. There really are.
What issues do need to be looked at, do you believe?
The accountability and the independence and the integrity of investigations.